listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.
All right, good morning, happy Friday, and welcome to another edition. This is officially episode number 4 of the Political Hour with Marielle Summers 2022. You know why we're here. We came to discuss some local politics, some state politics, and some national politics. It's important each week for me to digest what's happening around us and why that should be of any importance to us. Sometimes we have to break these things down, and I like to offer up an informed opinion to help you kind of think about some of the things that we're all experiencing together. So it's hard nowadays. Cancel culture is real. You got to be careful what you're saying. It's almost like everything you say now can be documented and follow you to the next stage in your life when, maybe you have evolved in your thinking or your maturity, but here are these Twitter posts or this video of you at a younger time or, an opinion in which you no longer believe. So you got to be careful, but at the same time, you can't be afraid to tell the truth. The truth is super important. It's the purpose of the First Amendment in our Constitution. More on that later here in the show. But we have to tell the truth. We have to speak truth to power. And it's good to have platforms like Power Plug. Make sure you're tuning in throughout the week. There are 5 ways to listen to Power Plug. We're right here on YouTube Live every Friday at 10 a.m. But there's a variety of content for you to be able to to tap into. But platforms are important. And that's why we're here, man. The Political Hour, man. Let's delve right into it. National politics is where I want to start. We spent some time talking about the mayoral race for a while. We spent some time talking in detail about some of the bills that we face in the state legislature and that process. And so I thought we should spend a little bit of time this week talking about what's happening at the national level beyond, just the surface. So I think the biggest thing is inflation. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of prospective bills. We've talked about, can the Democrats get the Voting Rights, John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed? Can the Democrats get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed? Can the Democrats get an infrastructure bill passed while we have pretty much a majority in our legislature and a Democratic president in the White House? Well, all of those things are just things that are swimming around in the political atmosphere. But the thing that's making the cloud real dark right now, if you're an American, is that everything is going up. Remember, our democracy holds in place the other driver of our nation, which is our economy. And these two systems work in tangent to give us American, life, American government, Americanism. It is the system of democracy that affixes this economy, this system of capitalism. And so economic policy and the way that the government approaches, balancing commerce and the way that money is flowing and how many people have access and so forth. This is all very, very reflective on things like inflation. It's a private economic problem, but it is also, some would argue, economic policy, right? All of the markets, for instance, have regulations. You have COVID policies that vary from state to state. And all of these things are maybe working to kind of slow down the process of production and make scarcity a real problem in every market, whether it's food or whether it is oil and the price of gas and so forth, economic policy. Others would say it's COVID itself, right? If the factory or the firm has people that are sick or that are out from COVID, the production is then impacted. And then there's always the finger to point at the greedy and at the rich, right? And to say there are no good jobs, rent is rising, the cost of living is going up. And, I think, again, the two systems that I talked about, the balance of those, I think the answer is recalibrating and understanding what makes those two systems work together so perfectly to give us this great nation, because they're at odds right now. They contradict in a lot of ways, and it isn't giving enough people this comfortable life in America, right? So 1858, Abraham Lincoln said, "A house divided cannot stand," right? Our nation is so dangerously divided at this point in time that our democracy is kind of corroding away at the hands of special interests and the elite and those who can afford to not or those who can afford to participate in the political process. I'll say that. But even the attitudes, so many people hate America. So many citizens who live here hate our country, whether they're hating the way that the country is progressing or they're hating the way that the cultures and mindsets are degressing. And then on an international scale, we're making more enemies. People look at America as this greedy nation that bullies its way into a lot of other affairs. We'll talk about that in a second when we talk about Russia. But we're making ourselves vulnerable with the division. And it's how the election hack. You remember our elections were hacked. Our national elections were hacked. Well, a lot of people don't talk about this enough and break this down in the layman's terms. How did exactly our elections get hacked? They hacked into the social code in America. A lot of these quote unquote, it wasn't hacks, it was interference. So you'll hear it being referred to as election interference. And how did they interfere with our elections? Well, they were able to, through social media, through Twitter, through Facebook, and a little Instagram, but through social engagement, right? Tap into America's cultural divisions. So if you look at the type of content that was kind of flooded by these bots, by these foreign entities into our social media platforms, it was things that targeted specifically the Black community to discourage voting. It was things in particularly that were religiously charged to encourage people to vote and take hard stances on issues like abortion and gay rights. And it was all of our fringe groups against the quote unquote core groups. They tapped at every bit of American division. And that's what I mean by we have to make these two systems work in tangent together. Remember, we are talking about national inflation. And you are tuned into the Political Hour. And what can be done to fix this. And I am asserting that we have to strengthen our democracy. We have to strengthen our democracy. Right now, I've lived for the last 15 years observing the pride and citizenship just kind of all but vanish on one side of politics and then lean heavily and then pervertedly on the other side. But this genuine care for the next person, that's the strength of our democracy. And so we have to move forward. I would move forward, and I choose to move forward in a matter of, I would call it aggressive moderation, right? You've heard the saying, everything's good in moderation, right? Everything's good in moderation. But I think you have to be aggressive in terms of time. You have to get things accomplished, but from a moderate perspective, which means you have to take in a lot. We have to have more diverse and honest opinions that are forced to converge. Do you know what I'm saying? We can't just have these differing opinions operating in these silos and letting the division become even stronger. We have to be able to meet each other in the middle of the road to say, this is what I believe and this is what I am not willing to concede upon, and what are your prospects, and let's see if we can find a way. But our moderate perspective cannot be handicapped by time. Martin Luther King would say that time is neutral, right? And that it can be used either constructively or destructively, depending on, who's at the controls. And so we have a democracy, and we need to understand that we're in control of our democracy, but only when we're intentional and when we're willing to make the concessions that are going to move us forward together. I think the citizens have to have more pride. This post 9/11 pride. If I was just a young person, I was maybe turning 11 years old that year. I was 10 years old, September 11th, 2001. And so the aftermath of those attacks on our nation, something I observed even then was how proud to be an American people, citizens of all backgrounds and of all places were. There were American flags on everything, and there was just this sense of overcoming through our shared understanding that we love our country, and that if people want to attack us for being our country, then we're going to be a stronger nation, and we're not going to cower down. We need that same energy, but without the threat of war to bring us together, without a tragedy. Because I feel like even national disasters don't bring us together like they used to. I mean, we've had some horrific fires. We've had some tumultuous hurricane. Even hurricane, I think it was Ida, this past fall that slammed into New Orleans again. Man, we're seeing tornadoes rip through, and maybe it's just me, but when I think about the 2000s, 2010s, these types of things, I mean, there was an earthquake in Haiti in which they had a whole televised telethon with all your celebrities singing for like money. And now the catastrophic events that are happening both abroad and here, they just don't captivate that same type of energy. And so I don't know, this is the long way around the block, but I'm really talking about what it's going to take to bring this nation together, because I think a strong democracy is the long answer to fixing things like inflation permanently, to at least this crippling inflation in which people can't afford to, get medicine, groceries, extracurriculars, and not have to work from sun up to sundown every single day of their life. This nation has to work for more people. It has to work for all. if more people have what's considered a good life, a comfortable life where they can afford those things that I mentioned, these folks are more likely to be participants in society, constructive members of our democracy. This means being a part of neighborhood associations, being a part of community organizations and events, going to school board meetings, or participating in government at large for that matter. All of these things come when an individual has more dedication and commitment to the community around them. And that comes through being able to participate and not being a slave to one's community, one's neighborhood, one's society, but being a true participant. You start to care when you're a taxpayer and you're not excited about tax season because you stopped getting refunds a while ago, right? But now you've gotten your affairs so in order that you pay taxes. You're a tax-paying American, as they would say. This economically is where I believe we have to get more Americans to be being tax-paying Americans, because it's going to be more reflective. It's everything we love about this nation, everything we hate about this nation. All of this stuff can be moved through government action on a national level. We're a democratic republic. We elect who represents us in this nation, and that is based on the rule of law. But think about this, guys. 56% of voters voted in the last presidential election. 27% on a national average is the local election turnout. This means that half of the American voting people are fighting split about the president. So half of the people are split into halves themselves, which means essentially 1/4 of the voting population, maybe a little bit more, is picking the leader of the free world. On a local level, you got a quarter of the people on a local level that are split up picking the mayor, the city council, the local elections we just had. That means by numbers, an eighth of the local voting percentage is picking. These picks affect 100% of us. And so it really, really goes back to, how do we strengthen our democracy? How do we get more people involved in voting? I've answered this. I've said that people need a better life here in America, that they need to become tax-paying citizens to really value participating in our democracy. But I'm off this. But understand, until we get our democracy under control, the elite will continue to legislate in this country. These major corporations, the super PACs, why do you think it is that most elected officials spend a great deal of their time fundraising? Because money talks in any situation, but in an election, it makes your voice louder, right? Makes you more visible, makes you the obvious choice, earns you a little bit more allegiance from the powers that be. And right now, on a national level, I was just reading an article this morning. One of the Soros guys, I think it's George Soros, older gentleman, donated about $125 million to a super PAC. $125 million is donated to a super PAC. This PAC then has the ability to turn around and support the political candidates it wishes to see in office. And if you don't think money matters in elections, I just went through my first one, and let me tell you, it makes all the difference. Not all of the time. There are examples and outliers, and we praise those, Andrew Gillum. But the fact of the matter is, more often than not, you have, the candidate with the deepest pockets able to go the furthest. And so that's one thing. Thing number two, prices are going to continue to skyrocket. There is this very wild west component to capitalism, where if it isn't affixed on the right system of government, it can really run wild and quickly become everything Karl Marx said it would be, right? I'm not a Marxist, but I'm just saying what empowers him today is that so many of his predictions about capitalism and its failures we're actually living. And it's hard to call somebody crazy when, they call something out 100 years before it's like happening and hit it right on the head. You're like, dang. But I have faith in our democracy. I think the American system of government, the American system of this democratic society that we have it's the first of its kind. They call it, an experiment, the American experiment. And I truly believe with the right engagement, that we can balance the system of capitalism to work in our favor and to be a global dominant power, which I'm all in favor of. But without it, capitalism becomes this wild west, where the disparities just grow, and you have the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, and you have just these two classes of people, in which the elite get richer and build a society around us that we can't afford. And we're living that here in St. Pete. I'm going to talk a little bit about our local news after we come back from this break. But, this gap between the haves and have-nots, if we don't get our democracy under control, it is going to only increase. Those of you who are in the middle class right now, I mean, you might have been in the upper middle class 10 years ago, but now you're in the middle class. If you were in lower middle class 10 years ago, you're teetering along the poverty line. The disparities are real, folks, and the cost of living and the rise in wages are not congruent. They are just not. You got technology moving the world forward 10 years in a 5-year span, and all the skills that 10 years ago were good enough to get you that good position, that secure employment. Well, those are fading few and far between, and without some new type of skill set, it's becoming impossible to just naturally have everyone keep up. And so it is a lot to consider when you're making the laws, and that's why our democracy is important. Last thing I'll say about this is, until we get our democracy under control, it'll be increasingly hard to afford things. That this is not a matter of a scarcity in goods, but it's a matter of scarcity in democracy. We need more people to participate in everything in society. We don't have the luxury of a non-participatory democracy. It's not a spectator sport. They always say that democracy is not a spectator sport. You cannot expect this nation to work in your favor. Other people have said it like this: if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. If you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. So I'm saying, folks, inflation's a big issue. It's wrapped up into a lot of other things. You can take the conversation and kind of run with it, but I just wanted to harpen on what I think is the root of such a problem and an ever expanding problem, and that is, can we strengthen our democracy enough to hold such a big system of capitalism that works in a way for all people? So we're gonna take a break real quick. We always do halftime. When we come back, I got a few other national things I want to touch base on. We'll talk about some local things, finish out with some state bills, and I'll get going. Let you folks get going on your Friday. But I'm Marielle Summers. This is the Political Hour, only on Power Plug Radio.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams. You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the Political Hour here. I'm Ariel Summers, your host, and you know why we're here. State, local, and national politics. I just had some pomegranate matcha tea, lemonade. Oh man. So I just thought this would be a perfect time to plug Urban Drinkery right here on 9th Avenue South and 22nd Street. Shout out to Chandra and the good folks at Urban Drinkery. Man, that is a winner. Non-alcoholic for your church going folks. Just stop by and grab one. Have you something good to drink. Few other things that I want to touch on a national level real quick. We talked on the first part of the show about inflation. We talked about, the rising cost of living. And I think I just want to spend a few moments here talking about the war. Is there a war brewing? I don't think there is. In my opinion, I don't think there is. And here's why. The United States has been in what many would consider a Cold War with Russia since the late 1980s, and I think this is an extension of that. The U.S. wants to keep an eye on the former Soviet state. We don't need a war over there in that region of the world. In fact, we don't really have any deep ties to the Ukraine like that. But Russia has been kind of like an enemy of ours for a long time. We've made them out of an enemy, if nothing less. But for at least the last 15 years, Russia's kind of been showing these types of threats. They've invaded the Ukraine more than once. And this recent invasion, they hacked over 70 government websites. And this is a big deal because now we're in cyber warfare. This is 2022 warfare where you can hack into government sites. How are they doing this? They're doing it through malware. They're sending it through bogus email links or keystroking programs. There are so many different variants for how you can get malware into a system. And so you have Russia showing a lot of aggression. It was a few years ago. They cut the lights off in a region of the Ukraine by hacking into people's power grids and hacking into, have the ability to control heat and light in a nation. That is a new form of warfare. But nonetheless, I say all that to say Russia's been bullying the Ukraine for a while now. And I think the United States just wants to be privy to what's happening there. And so I don't think a war is going to ensue. I know 8,500 troops have been put on notice, but honestly, I think it's just, we want to be front and center at what's happening, and with good reason, because they hacked us. They got into the United States in a cyber crime kind of way, but they didn't hack into any of our systems. They just influenced, like we talked about in the first part of the show here. And if you missed the first part of the show, be sure to go to YouTube and Power Plug Radio and catch that. But yeah, they influenced our elections by being able to get into the division that exists in America via social media. And so they had thousands of bots, and they weren't alone. Thousands of bots with dummy accounts spewing the propaganda that feeds into America's most divisive points, whether it's race or religion or sexuality, abortion. That is how they were able to influence the election. But there's a war brewing. Is there? No. So moving right along, we have a new Supreme Court justice coming to the United States Supreme Court. Remember, folks, the Supreme Court is the highest law in, the Constitution is the highest law in the land. And it is our Supreme Court justices who are the judges who have that final say. And we have 9 justices that sit on the court. And in the 115 justices we've had since this nation began, only 2 of those have been black. First Thurgood Marshall and currently Justice Clarence Thomas. Well, that makes 225 years. In the last 55 years, we first started seeing black representation on the Supreme Court. Out of the entire time our nation has been around. So justice is moving slow, but Justice Breyer here, he was appointed by President Clinton in the 1990s, 1994 to be exact. He is retiring. He's retiring. Now, the Supreme Court, unlike the other 2 branches of government, the Supreme Court is a lifetime appointment. And the founders did that to give the checks and balances system some sustainability. You see, if somebody is elected to the bench for life, they don't have to have political leanings. They don't have to campaign to be reelected or keep up with what's popular. If they are going to oversee the highest law in the land, their lifetime appointments is what makes them impartial, right? It's what's supposed to make them impartial. And so why is Justice Breyer retiring? Well, it could be perhaps he wants to go and enjoy the rest of his life. It could be perhaps he is feeling the political climate and the pendulum is swinging every 4 years. When President Trump was in his short 4-year term, he was able to get 3 Supreme Court justices, 30% of the court essentially, nominated and confirmed. And that's a pretty big deal in terms of shaping, how we look at the Constitution. The Constitution is a living document, very much like don't kill me, y'all, but it's kind of like the Bible. Certain things you don't take literal out of that, but it's a concept, right? And it's a concept that you apply to the living day. In recent years, we've seen our division in this nation take that pendulum and make it swing back and forth a lot more severely, a lot more swiftly. And I think he's retiring to give this Biden administration the option and ability to make a Supreme Court pick before the pendulum swings back the other way. So President Biden is committed to selecting a black woman for this confirmation, which she would be the first black Supreme Court justice woman. I think she'd be maybe the 6th woman, perhaps after Justice Kagan. But just remember the process and how politics works, y'all. Government works in this instance, that Biden can pick the person and nominate them, but it's up to the Senate to confirm. The Senate holds the hearings. They sit there. If you remember Brett Kavanaugh's notorious, outbursts at the table, they sit there and they ask them questions from their high school calendars, even though these people are well into their lives. So whoever she is, she will face strict scrutiny. And if they vote along party lines, we'll have a 50-50 split, which is how the Senate is currently composed. We can't have any deflectors, Joe Manchin. So whoever Biden picks, all the Democrats have to be on board. And even if they all are, it will still be likely a 50-50 vote, which would be cool because then the vice president of the United States has the deciding vote. And we all know that Kamala Harris is going to vote in favor of that pick. So that's what I'm hoping for. That's enough on the national side. I'm going to lily frog over the state side. We'll cover a little bit of that towards the end. How much time we got here? Yeah, we'll cover a little bit of that towards the end. I do want to talk about some of this local stuff that's happening. Mayor Welch and City Council got on the same page about the 2023 budget priorities. And, among them were city employee raises, affordable housing, pedestrian safety, and fire trucks. Now, before this is official or anything like that, the council will get an official list together and submit it to the budget department. And remember, the budget department falls under the purview of the city administration, and so there will be some balance. But I want us to look for equity in this budget. I want us to look for the efforts that are being made to reach people where they are. You know, is the intention to reach folks where they are or to push them out? There's this old saying, show me your budget and I will show you your priorities. Where do you spend your money? And, you know, we have a lot of money considered for things to make, I guess, our developing cities safer for the developed. But the underdeveloped and the undeveloped individuals of this city are still looking for those effective actions to make outcomes for a different reality. But, you know, Mayor Welch said he'll be intentional. And so I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to that. The mayor has also said he has plans to go after and tap into some of the infrastructure dollars being made available by the Biden administration. There's $49 million being allocated to the state of Florida for bridges. And so this money could bring some updates and perhaps extensions to local bridges, some fixes. So, you know, best wishes to the mayor and his health. You know, he's recovering, coming back and to the city hall after COVID and so forth. And so all the best to him, and we're keeping an eye on our city as it moves forward. Our school board superintendent has said he's going to retire. Superintendent Mike Greco is retiring. And this is significant. It's always significant when you have a shift in change in leadership, especially, you know, when someone's tenure is like a decade, right? And so he has a lot of things he can tout. The graduation rate, I think, is going to be his biggest thing. When he first came in, it was somewhere around 70%. And now it's about 92%, which is awesome. With black students, when he came in, the black student graduation rate was somewhere around 56%. And that is somewhere now around 86%. So just raising the threshold and raising the number of people who are graduating and who are, you know, making it through our K through 12, that's good. That's good. But I think, are at a place where we need further things to be progressed, right? We're still talking about classroom disparities, classroom sizes, and the access to the latest technology or the latest information. We have the suspension and behavior protocols. How many students of a certain race are being, written up, suspended, removed from classes, and kind of mismanaged inside of the school system. Teachers pay, the supplies that teachers have. I mean, I remember back in my day, the teachers had some stuff. You know, your parents all kind of chipped in here and there, but the teachers had some supplies. But now my teacher friends are saying that they're having to buy their own supplies. A lot of times they're coming out of their own pockets. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is not all on the shoulders of one man. This doesn't fall on or woman for that matter. This doesn't fall merely and squarely on the shoulders of the superintendent. But as we look forward, these are some of the things I'm hoping a new superintendent will have an impact on. And that we can kind of see some movement on those things. So what else do we got here? Maxi Mall is closing. Maxi Mall is closing, y'all. There's a few more minutes here. So Maxi Mall is closing. This is its last weekend. So tomorrow, the Saturday morning shop is having a pop-up shop, and you can go out and there will be vendors. Make sure you bundle up. It's gonna be a nice morning to kind of get out and enjoy a Florida winter morning. So get on up and come out and support these business owners. Many of them are gonna have a lot of deals, like end of business, kind of closing business deals. And there'll be a lot of vendors outside as well. So that's 10 to 3 tomorrow. But, Maxi Mall closing is just another example of developing city. They aren't closing because they want to close. They're closing because they've been bought out. Because somebody else is going to put something else right there that's going to make some money. I read every other day that a groundbreaking for something is happening so that some high rises can go up, some residential properties can go up. So, our city's developing, and as always, I am just hoping that we can open up the flow of the tap there and allow more people to benefit from said development. So that's an on a local tip. Statewide, we're just going to continue to follow the legislature. I purposely saved state for last because I did not want to go down another wormhole about all the crazy things that are happening here in the state of Florida. But it's a streamlined process. Just to give you one example before we get out of here real quick, House Bill 5, the abortion bill that we've been talking about, right? This bill continues to make its way through the legislature. It went through another committee this past week, and boy, it made the news because the committee chair cut public testimony short. So part of our democracy is each and every one of us can decide to ascend upon Tallahassee to protest a bill. And there's a time and a place where we can stand in front of the people who are responsible for writing our laws saying, I, as a citizen, do not want this. That is a part of our democracy. It's a beautiful part of our democracy. Well, the committee chair cut it short, and the people began to just get in an uproar, and they started chanting, let us speak, let us speak, let us speak, and just became so unruly that security had to be called in. The room was cleared out. And they took the vote anyways, and the vote was 10-5 along party lines. And I don't laugh because it is funny. I laugh because it's matter of factly, we didn't need you in here because we had already decided that we were going to pass this. This is the importance of some of the stuff we were talking about last week in terms of gerrymandering and drawing these districts so that our state isn't inherently Republican leaning. Man, this is the outcome. These folks are able to just kick us out, say, hey, we don't even want to hear what it is that you have to say because we're still going to vote 10-5. So this is the political hour. Hopefully not too much doom and gloom. But such is politics, man. Such is politics. I love it because we got to digest it. We got to understand what's important about what's happening. And as long as I can, I'll keep coming back to you each and every Friday, 10 a.m. now on YouTube Live and Power Plug Radio. I'm Mariel Summers. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams. You're listening to Power Plug Radio.